Hey everyone, welcome back to On the Roll with Matt. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share something with you. After this video, I'll be taking a short break from posting, and I plan to be back around mid July. This is not me disappearing, this is me managing myself, my time, my energy, my responsibilities, and the season I am in, and in a way that actually connects perfectly to what I want to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about managing yourself. I want to talk about being responsible for your reactions, your choices, your emotions, your attitude, your healing, and the way you show up in the world. Now, before I go any further, I want to say this with care, compassion, and respect. There are people who live with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, cognitive impairments, brain injuries, mental health conditions, or other challenges that may affect their ability to process, regulate, communicate, or make decisions in the same way others can. This message is not meant to shame anyone, dismiss anyone, or place unfair expectations on people who need support, accommodation, patience, and understanding. Every person deserves dignity. Every person deserves compassion. Every person deserves to be treated with honor. So, when I talk about responsibility today, I am speaking to those of us who have the capacity, the awareness, and the ability to take ownership of ourselves, even if it is difficult. Because if we are capable of taking responsibility, then we are responsible for doing the work. That does not mean life has been fair. That does not mean trauma did not happen. That does not mean disability is not real. That does not mean addiction is not powerful. That does not mean pain does not shape us. But it does mean we cannot surrender our entire life to reaction. Speaking from a disabled point of view, I have learned that self management is not optional, it is necessary. My body has limitations I cannot always control. There are things I cannot physically do. There are barriers I did not ask for. There are days where disability affects my strength, my movement, my pain, my independence, my schedule, and even my confidence. There are moments where I have to think through things that many people never have to think about: transfers, accessibility, energy, safety, risk, whether my body is going to cooperate that day. I cannot always control what my body allows me to do, but I am still responsible for how I respond. I am still responsible for how I speak to people. I am still responsible for how I treat my wife, my family, my friends, and the people around me. I am still responsible for whether I allow bitterness to become my personality. I am still responsible for whether I use pain as a reason to grow or as a reason to destroy everything around me. And I say that with humility because I do not always get it right. There are days when frustration rises up. There are days when fear tries to take over. There are days when pain speaks louder than patience. There are days when I have to stop myself before my emotions make decisions my character would not agree with. But that is the work. Managing yourself does not mean pretending you are fine. It means learning how to pause before you react. It means learning how to name what you feel without becoming controlled by it. It means learning how to be honest about your pain without making everyone else pay for it. It means learning how to take responsibility for your side of the street, even when someone else still needs to take responsibility for theirs. And to my able bodied brothers and sisters, this message is for you too, especially for those who understand addiction, recovery, hurts, habits, hang-ups, dysfunction, trauma, and survival patterns. In the addiction realm, one of the hardest but most freeing truths is this: we cannot make choices for other people. We cannot force someone to heal. We cannot force someone to change. We cannot force someone to apologize. We cannot force someone to take accountability. We cannot force someone to treat us right. But we are responsible for what we do with what has been placed in front of us. We are responsible for whether we keep living in resentment. We are responsible for whether we keep making excuses. We are responsible for whether we keep blaming everyone else while refusing to look in the mirror. We are responsible for whether we keep repeating patterns we say we want to break. That is not condemnation, that is invitation. An invitation to freedom, an invitation to maturity, an invitation to healing, an invitation to stop letting yesterday control every choice we make today. Because there is a dangerous place we can get to in life, and it is when we begin to believe that because we were hurt, we are no longer responsible for how we hurt others. That mindset will keep a person trapped. Yes, what happened to you matters. Yes, your story matters. Yes, your wounds matter. Yes, your pain deserves to be acknowledged. But pain does not give us permission to live without accountability. Being wounded does not give us permission to wound everyone around us. Being mistreated does not give us permission to mistreat others. Being misunderstood does not give us permission to become cruel. Being a victim of something does not mean we have to build a permanent identity around victimhood. And I know that word can be sensitive, so hear my heart. There is a real difference between being victimized and living in victimhood. Being victimized means something wrong happened, something harmful happened, something unfair happened, and that deserves compassion, justice, care, and healing. But victimhood becomes a mindset when we begin to use our pain as a shield against responsibility. It becomes a mindset when everything is always someone else's fault. It becomes a mindset when accountability feels like an attack instead of an opportunity. And we are living in a time where personal responsibility is not always celebrated. Sometimes blame is easier. Sometimes outrage is easier. Sometimes staying offended is easier. Sometimes pointing at everyone else is easier than sitting quietly with God, with a counselor, with a sponsor, with an accountability partner, or with ourselves and asking, what part of this belongs to me? That question is powerful. What part of this belongs to me? Not what belongs to my parents, not what belongs to my past, not what belongs to my disability, not what belongs to the person who hurt me, not what belongs to society, not what belongs to someone else's choices. What belongs to me? My response belongs to me. My attitude belongs to me. My recovery belongs to me. My healing belongs to me. My words belong to me. My choices belong to me. My willingness belongs to me. And when we can finally say, this part is mine, we begin to take back power in a healthy way. Not control over other people, not control over every outcome, not control over every circumstance, but stewardship over ourselves. That is where growth begins. Because freedom does not come from controlling everyone around us. Freedom comes from learning how to be grounded within ourselves, even when everything around us is uncomfortable. Freedom is being able to say, I am hurt, but I will not become hateful. Freedom is being able to say, I am frustrated, but I will not become reckless. Freedom is being able to say, I am afraid, but I will not let fear make my choices. Freedom is being able to say, I have limitations, but I am not without responsibility. Freedom is being able to say, I cannot change what happened, but I can decide what kind of person I become from here. That is powerful. And for me, as a Christian, this connects deeply to surrender. Surrender does not mean passivity. It does not mean doing nothing. It does not mean avoiding responsibility and saying God will handle it while we refuse to grow? Surrender means I bring God what I cannot control, and I ask Him for the strength to be faithful with what I can control. I cannot control every limitation in my body, but I can ask God to help me respond with patience. I cannot control every person's opinion of me, but I can ask God to help me walk in humility. I cannot control every hard season, but I can ask God to help me not become hardened by it. I cannot control yesterday, and I cannot control tomorrow, but I can ask God for the grace to make the next right choice today. And that is where one day at a time becomes more than a saying, it becomes a way of life. One day at a time, I choose responsibility. One day at a time, I choose surrender. One day at a time, I choose accountability. One day at a time, I choose not to let my pain become my excuse. One day at a time, I choose to keep rolling forward. And I believe we owe that to each other. We owe it to each other to become emotionally healthier people, not perfect people, not people who never struggle, not people who always say the right thing, not people who never fall short, but people who are willing to repair, people who are willing to apologize, people who are willing to listen, people who are willing to grow, people who are willing to stop using pain as permission to stay the same. Because emotionally unhealthy people create unsafe environments in families, in friendships, in marriages, in churches, in recovery rooms, in workplaces, in communities. But when we begin to take responsibility for ourselves, we become safer people to be around. We learn how to disagree without dehumanizing. We learn how to be hurt without attacking. We learn how to have boundaries without bitterness. We learn how to tell the truth without cruelty. We learn how to love people without controlling them. We learn how to honor people even when we do not share the same worldview, values, or beliefs. And that matters because the goal is not just to be right, the goal is to be whole. The goal is not just to win arguments. The goal is to become the kind of person who can carry truth with love, conviction with humility, and responsibility with grace. So today I want to challenge you. Look at your life and ask yourself, where am I reacting instead of responding? Where am I blaming instead of healing? Where am I avoiding accountability because it feels uncomfortable? Where am I expecting other people to change while refusing to examine myself? Where have I allowed pain, disability, addiction, trauma, or disappointment to become the reason I stopped growing? And then ask the next question: What is one responsible choice I can make today? Not 10 years from now, not when everything is perfect, not when everyone apologizes, not when all the circumstances change. Today. Maybe it is making the phone call. Maybe it is apologizing. Maybe it is going to counseling. Maybe it is calling your sponsor. Maybe it is pausing before you speak. Maybe it is praying before you react. Maybe it is choosing not to pick up the substance, the habit, the resentment, the bitterness, or the old pattern. Maybe it is simply saying, I need help. That is not weakness, that is responsibility. And responsibility is not the enemy of compassion. Responsibility and compassion belong together. We can have compassion for what someone has been through while still encouraging them to grow. We can honor someone's pain while still saying, you are capable of healing. We can acknowledge someone's limitations while still celebrating the areas where they can take ownership. We can be kind and still be truthful. We can be loving and still be accountable. So, as I take this short break until mid July, I want to leave you with this: manage what is yours. You may not be able to manage every circumstance. You may not be able to manage every limitation. You may not be able to manage every person. You may not be able to manage every outcome. But you can begin with yourself, your next response, your next choice, your next step, your next surrender, your next act of growth. And over time, those choices matter. They shape your character. They shape your relationships. They shape your recovery. They shape your future. They shape the atmosphere you carry into the lives of others. So be responsible for what is yours, not with shame, not with pride, not with self hatred, but with humility, courage, grace, and the willingness to grow. This is On the Roll with Matt. Keep rolling forward, one choice, one day, and one surrendered step at a time. I'll see you again mid-July.